So if we look at the year 1900, before 1900, the vast majority of this population, and actually even if we go back further, if we go back to like 1850, at about 1850, the vast majority of the population was rural. They were farmers, laborers. They lived out in the country, or they lived in a small sort of town. You go into town for the basic supplies that you need, and you trade, and you do all that sort of thing. If you didn't live there, you lived in a city. And cities in the 1850s looked a lot different than cities do now. And I'm not really going to dwell on that, one, because I don't know a whole lot about it, but also because I want to skip ahead to 1900. So,
I mean, to suffice to say, perhaps we wouldn't have had the population boom. We wouldn't have had as many people living in them, like you said. So there's no way they could have been bigger. And even if they were even, I imagine that. No, I'll leave it there. There's no way they could have been bigger.
Yeah, the big city was like 150,000 people. I don't know what the population of New York City was at that point, but I know it was significantly. It might have been 1 million instead of like the 17 million that it is now, or however many it is. I don't know. So I'm going to not speak on it. But in the latter half of the 20th century, we have the first workings of, or the 19th century, I should say, excuse me, we have the first workings of the Industrial Revolution, where we start making machines to do things, where we start building factories and having people work in factories. And this kind of kicks into full swing around the 1890s. And by 1900, the Industrial Revolution is full steam ahead. Even at this point, there's a lot of people that are rural, a lot of farmers, a lot of ranchers, a lot of people that actually genuinely live in the country and just live off of what they can work to do, off of what they can produce by working.
Off of just a normal life to that point.
They live off the work of their own hands, which is what the Old Testament promises us, or tells us that we ought to do. Like most people for 99.9% of all human history have done. So, but here's what happens. In the cities, we have factories being built. And there are no labor laws. So the men in charge of these factories go, oh, well, we're just going to make our people work 12 hours a day. We're going to let them have one break because that's the moral thing to do, maybe. And we're going to pay them like shit because we want to maximize our profit and put as much in our pockets as we possibly can.
Do you know why there would have been no labor laws?
Because it was a new thing.
But people would have been working on farms before.
I think it's because it's a different kind of work. It's before this, most people were technically self-employed. Or if you employed somebody, you employed like a day laborer. Like say you own a wheat field. You go into the city and you look for people who are just kind of standing around looking for work, and you say, okay, I'll take you, and I'll take you, and I'll take you. Bring them back to your wheat field, and you put a scythe in their hands, and you say, I would like this section of the wheat field cut down by sundown. It's harvest time. And so that's basically what work was. As far as employment goes, you were a shopkeeper, or you were a store clerk, or you were a bank teller. Basically, it was understood that work stops at sundown, so we all go home. Here's another thing that happens in the early 20th century, the electric light. So the electric light comes around. Now we're going, ooh, we don't have to stop working at sundown. Because we have these electric lights, we can be working 24 hours a day. Now, they had gas lights back then, too. It's the the gaslight era is what are called the gay 90s, which refers to the 1890s. The 1990s were very gay too, but also in a different way. So the gay 90s and the 1890s, the gaslight period, lamplighter was an actual job. Your job was to get up in the morning before the sun and put out all of the streetlights. And then at about sunset, to light all of the streetlights again, which were gas powered. But there was still this idea that, okay, at sundown, we turn out the lights. Like everybody should be going to bed at some point. Or we turn the streetlights on for, because the rich folks are going to the opera or something. And they're getting home at 3 a.m. or something like that. Like, I think
most people are stopping work because your work is to a degree set by who's demanding that you work for them, who's demanding the product you're making. And if you're in smaller communities, then the electric light isn't going to change that much because, Cheryl's probably not going to go visit the doctor's office or the general store at 9 o'clock at night.
Probably not. And even if the doctor is needed in the middle of the night, somebody is sent to his house with a candle or a lantern and says, Doc, you're needed.
Yep. But in the city, you're focused on making big things.
It's industrial stuff. So this is where we start seeing factories. Anybody that has played Assassin's Creed Syndicate knows what I'm talking about. Actually does a really good job of portraying what a factory was like. Now, that's in London, and we're talking about the United States, but it was virtually the same thing.
Industrial Revolution, yeah. So
Industrial Revolution. So basically these factories where there's a line in one of the Wax and Wayne books from Brandon Sanderson too. I think it's in The Bands of Mourning, where Wayne is overhearing some men, because that's set in kind of the same type of time period. The gaslight period, the gay 90s, and the early 20th century. Just starting into the electric light. And Wayne is overhearing some men who are saying, one man says, I have to get up and go to work before my daughter gets out of bed. And she's already asleep again by the time I get home. So basically, because of the lack of scruples in the men who are running factories, because they want to maximize as much profit and as much product as they can, and because there's not really even enough people to have shifts, they're making people work 12, 14-hour days. At least. Some people are having to work 20-hour days.
Dang. Is that lack of people to take shifts also where child labor comes from?
Yes. Like, we're running out of workers? Well, bring the kids in, and we'll pay them 12 cents a week. 9 cents a week. 7 cents a week. Something like that. We'll pay you because you're small. You can't really work as hard as the grown-ups can. But children who should be learning and should be playing are now shoved into a factory when they're 8, 9 years old. And it may not even be the same factory that their fathers work in.
So I know inflation's a thing.
And a lot of that is also because there's not any safety regulations at this time either. So if machines break and accidents happen and somebody dies, it's kind of, we'll bury him and get somebody new.
Sort of too focused on the wrong things. So
people get horrible, they get maimed and killed by factories.
Yeah. I know inflation's a thing, but what's the incentive for a kid or for his parents, more importantly his parents probably, to work for that wage?
Survival, because city life is expensive. This is also a time when a significant portion of city populations were immigrants. A lot of them particularly Irish or Italian.
Okay.
Who were not considered white, barely even considered human, mostly because they were Catholic. And the Anglo-Saxon Protestant governing bodies and ruling class and upper class basically decided that they were going to borderline enslave them. You make $1 a week, your rent is 90 cents a week. They're paying insane levels of rent proportional to their wage to live in basically a single room tenement apartment. Uh, and this is what New York was like. This is what Boston was like. It's what Philadelphia was like. In most of at least the northern cities and in some of the southern ones too. But that's more of a discussion for, the Civil War podcast and the Reconstruction era that we talk about later on.
Yeah, and the religious and cultural motives
yes,
political motives can all be delved into later because that's interesting.
Yeah, a lot of that just has to do with the Irish Catholic population being treated like they weren't even human, and Italian Catholic as well, because those are the two major ones.
Yeah, those are the two biggest cohorts, followed by probably German and Polish, I think.
German and Polish, occasionally some Spanish, but not really, because Spain was doing okay at the time.
Mm-hmm.
German and Polish, maybe some Eastern European that would have also been at least Orthodox.
Okay.
If not an Eastern Rite Catholic. So the Industrial Revolution is a nightmare for the family. And if you want to know exactly how, go and read Rerum Novarum. Because Pope Leo XIII actually spends a great deal of time outlining why factories are bad. Or at least why factories, as they were being implemented at the time, were bad. Because it also wasn't just men and children. Women were being worked in factories too.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly in like dressmaking factories with sewing machines.
Yeah, textiles and the like. Sure.
Yeah. So that is the early 1900s. The unions are formed, and there's a lot of riots. There's a lot of protests. There's a lot of political movement that goes on. Finally, some labor laws are implemented. But at the same time, the First World War kicks off.